Thinking about moving to New Zealand from the United States, then you might want to do some research on what part of the country to move to. Kia ora, my name is Melissa, and I am the author of So You Want to Move to New Zealand, and today I thought that we would do a little road trip around the South Island. Now, yesterday I did a TikTok on the North Island, so if you want to check that out, go back to my profile and check that out. So here we have the South Island, and it is just, mind-blowingly beautiful. I live on the North Island in Bay of Plenty because I hate shoveling snow. The thing that made us move to New Zealand was visiting the South Island. Before my husband and I even considered relocating to Aotearoa, we visited the South Island for 3 weeks. It is mind-blowingly beautiful and soul-altering. Just how gorgeous the South Island is. Now, just to remind everybody, New Zealand is in the southern hemisphere, which means the top of the country is warmer because it's nearer the equator, and the bottom of the country is colder. If we look at the map of the South Island, I don't have the North Island here, but Nelson is the top of the South Island, and it's about a 3-hour ferry ride across the Cook Strait to Wellington. But if you wanted to take like a jumper plane, I think it takes like 30 minutes. Now, Nelson is some of the most beautiful beaches in all of Aotearoa. Abel Tasman is over right on this tip right here, and I've never been there, but what I do know is it's stunningly beautiful. The beaches there are insane, but there are murderous sandflies over there is what I've heard. I have to go to Abel Tasman at some point because I've seen the photos and it looks insane. Not a lot of like white collar jobs in this region. It's very much like tourism, fishing, agriculture. It's a small town, Nelson. So, if you're a big city kind of person, really anywhere on the South Island, with the exception of Christchurch, you're going to probably feel a little bit like bored if you came from somewhere like New York or Washington, D.C. or L.A. Moving over to Marlborough, they've got a lot of wine in this area, a lot. The majority of the exports from our wine industry come from Marlborough. Unless you're doing some sort of agriculture, I don't think that there's a lot of like white collar jobs here, but there is tourism. And the other thing I want to say about Marlborough is it can get oppressively hot and dry here. I remember being in Blenheim in, I think it was January or February, and we were camper vanning around the region. And I remember it was like 95 degrees Fahrenheit. We hadn't felt that kind of heat in a decade, and so we just decided to get into our camper van and hightail it to Kaikoura. I do love Marlborough, but on those really hot weeks, man, it is like hardcore. Let's come down to Christchurch and Canterbury. Now they've put this together. This is a huge swath of a region, and this is very different, so I'm going to try to go through all of these individually. Kaikoura is where I decided I'm moving to New Zealand. Go look at photos. It's insane. It is a white-capped mountain range that plunges from west to east into the sea. This is where you get lobster and where you go whale watching. This is where you go to see baby seals hanging out under waterfalls. I had a spiritual awakening on the beaches of Kaikoura. It is a very small town, so there's not going to be a ton of job opportunities there, but they do have a new hospital, so if you're a doctor or a nurse, it's something to check into. Also, little secret, Kaikoura's climate, because of the mountain range, is actually really good during the winter. I went there in July expecting it to be cold and rainy, and I got there and it was sunny and like 65 degrees. Asked a local, I'm like, what is with the weather? And they're like, yeah, that's our dirty little secret. It's like really good here in the winter because the mountain range catches all of the moisture, and then because we're east of that, it snows on the mountains and we stay dry. It's a stunning place. Kaikoura is insane. Sorry, I'm going to shut up about Kaikoura, but I love it so much. Moving down the coast, you can actually take a really cool railroad trip all the way down to Christchurch. Christchurch is where they had the really bad Christchurch earthquakes. They've rebuilt since then, and I've seen the new houses and the new, regions. It's beautiful down in Christchurch. A lot of good food down there. Just a little pro tip, this little, peninsula out to the east of Christchurch, there's a little French town called Akaroa. It's like you died and went to heaven. Go look at Akaroa. So the topography of this whole region is actually like bifurcated or split in half from the Alps. So basically the Alps start somewhere around here and they go through the middle of the South Island. Arthur's Pass I've been to. It's very mountainous, very beautiful. You have Kia. Lots of Kia birds are there. Watch your stuff. They will hurt your cars and they will steal your food. So don't feed them and try not to go near them, but they're very cheeky. Mount Cook is the highest peak in New Zealand, and Mount Cook, it's in all of those iconic photos that you see coming out of New Zealand. What I loved about Christchurch was you can work in the city, you can play in the city, you can eat in the city, and then within 1 hour, you can be out of the city and doing something insanely different to the city, like hot springs, or you go to Akaroa and you see dolphins, or you go a little bit further and you go to Arthur's Pass, or you go to Hamner Springs. I mean, or Castle Rock. Castle Rock is one of the famous locations that they used for Lord of the Rings in the original trilogy. Christchurch also has an international airport, so if that's something that you're concerned about because you want to get to an airport faster to get back to the United States to visit or something like that, then that is definitely something to think about. So let's jump over to the West Coast. This whole area is very wild. The wind is primarily coming from the west, so it's windier, and you're on the other side of the mountain range, so it tends to be wetter. Lots of small towns. These are very small. I've been to Hokitika. I've been to Greymouth. They're famous for their deep sea fishing and their coastal fishing. I really enjoyed it because there's a lot of art in these areas. Hokitika is a really quaint little town with a lot of really cool art. Going along down into the Lake Wanaka and Queenstown area. Probably one of the most famous, tourism magnets in all of New Zealand. It's very expensive to live there. Lake Wanaka, that is like, you want to talk about insanely beautiful. I will say that there's not a lot of jobs in Lake Wanaka. There's a lot of people that move to the Wanaka area and then they commute into Queenstown to work. They don't have an international airport that I'm aware of. You can get to Australia via Queenstown, but I don't think you can go east to the States. Going east, we're going to go to Dunedin and coastal Otago. This is where they've got Otago University and lots of really cool stuff going on down there. It's very rugged. Dunedin is very rainy. Just be aware. I've never been to Southland. We didn't have enough time to get down there. Lots of really amazing places to visit in terms of ecotourism, but it's very cold, very wet, very overcast, and not a whole lot going on in terms of white collar jobs. But if you really dig some really rugged, beautiful, incredible scenery, and you grew up and you lived in Maine, United States, then maybe Southland is for you. Fiordland, this is where Milford Sound is, and Milford Sound is one of the most famous places in the world. You're not going to have a whole lot of, white-collar job opportunities here, but if you work for the Department of Conservation, or you work in ecotourism, or if you work in adrenaline sports, like skydiving or bungee jumping or anything this region is really great. It is some of the most beautiful places that I've ever been to, and every time I go back, I think that it will not impress me, and then I'm overwhelmed once again. Just the drive from Teano to Milford Sound is literally one of the most beautiful drives I've ever done. So it's just incredible over there. That's it. That's the South Island in a nutshell. I could go on and on for another 10 or 20 minutes and other videos about the South Island. But I am Melissa. I wrote a book called So You Want to Move to New Zealand, An American's Guide to Relocating and Adapting to Life in Aotearoa. And the link is in my bio if you want to check it out. Good luck on your travels, and whether you come to New Zealand to move here for good or just for a couple of months of a road trip, that book can help you out. So have fun and be safe and enjoy Aotearoa for all we have to offer.